guys, and welcome back to the fourth Windows Phone 8 tutorial. What I'm going to be doing in this one is showing you how to use the margins and how to lay out your tools on the page so that it's kind of all nice and neat in case you come to all the resolution changes and other irritating things like that. So, I mean, I never used to do this because I thought that it wasn't ever going to be a problem, but now with some of the changes that are coming along and some of the things that Microsoft is saying they might be doing, and I don't know, we might have to prepare for this kind of thing. So it's easy to understand, and it's a far better way to build your applications just so that you're kind of more secure for if these things do happen. So what I'm going to go ahead and show you is we're going to open up the variables application again. If you were following the tutorial series, then you'll know what I'm on about. There's not a lot here, it's just I haven't touched any of it, so in theory you shouldn't have touched any of yours and you should be able to see similar kind of results of what I'm talking about. So the first thing we're going to look at is if you open up the main page, because that's obviously the only page we have. If we click on our text box, you'll see that it wasn't really set that well. I just threw it on the page, and this is what we're talking about. So you can look under the actual code itself and you can see the margin stuff here. That's how I usually work with it, but obviously it's easier if you're new to all of this to use the layout stuff. This is basically just a little kind of GUI for this, so it kind of makes things a bit easier to keep track of your margin stuff. It's a nicer way of dealing with it, I will admit. So what we've got here is we've got the width and the height of these boxes are static. So if the resolution was to change or the screen size was to change, our text box would still only be 456 pixels wide and 72 pixels high. That's just how it would be. Whereas if you click on the actual layout route itself, you'll see that it's automatic. And in this case, the automatic sets to 480 width and 800 height because it's the size of the screen on the page. So if you go back to your text box, you'll see that down here where we have the margins, this is where our problem would come. So say our page for some reason became 800 wide, not 480. Our box would remain in its same height, same width, sorry, of 456. And because we threw it down and the way the margins just set themselves to make it work, it's left its vertical alignment to top and its horizontal alignment to left, which means that it will go from the left and from the top. So with the 14 being on the left, what this means is any application that runs, any screen this runs on, it will align itself initially to the left, to the top, and then it will see it's got a top of 22, so it will come 22 pixels down from the top of the screen and 14 pixels to the right. I know it says left, but when it says left, it means how many pixels to go from the left to the right. So in having it as 14 and 22, our screen is actually going to be, it's always going to be up in that corner, and everything's going to stay up in that corner. Now, if you wanted it to always be central to what you were doing and central to the page, what you'd need to do is you take the margins out of these boxes and set them to 0, and you'll see that the box just goes straight up in the corner and sits in the designer. What you need to do is you'll use the horizontal alignment, and then the only one I normally play with is top. So what you effectively get here is everything would then work from the center of the page no matter where it is, and then from the top it would work its way down. So for example with this, we'd set a top of say 20, which brings it down nicely. We'd bring the button and we'd set our button to be 0, 0, 0, 0, and then for this one again we'd set the horizontal alignment if you wanted it to be kind of in with what we're working here. So you could come along to the center and then you could use the top again, but this time we'd go for something like, I don't know, 56, no, 68, no, that's shocking, maybe 80. Okay, we'll get in there, 120, that's better. So what we can now do is set the left margin, and the left margin will go towards the right from the center of the screen. So if we set this to say 40, okay, that's really not a lot, 200 to 80. Okay, so we're getting there, 320. There you go. So what it will now do is it will central itself and then move itself across the amount of pixels that we have requested it should. And then you can do the same for your text block, but because our text block wants to be relatively similar to our text box, we will just 0 these, then we'll allow it to set itself to the top, we'll center it, and then we'll just come down, I don't know, 400. No, way too far. 360. 220, sorry. Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. Okay, so now when we load up our page, you're not really going to see much of a difference. Obviously, you'll see these bits where they should be, but because we're doing this with resolutions and we can't really see it's going to work, you can take my word that this does work. And the same thing applies for the Metro. So if you're ever working in the Metro applications, this is how you need to build them, because now no matter how this screen has gone, we know that that is dead center. This box is exactly in the center of the page. The button is exactly centered, and then it's gone across, and we stated in the designer how much we want it to move. If you look at your button and you look at the margins, you can see that it's actually 320 by 120. So we know it's come down by 120 and it's gone across by 320. So this is kind of how we're working with it. What we can also do is we can mess around with the way that the application kind of deals with the layout, depending on whether it's in a horizontal or if it's on a vertical. Now, I personally don't make any horizontal applications because I, for one, don't like holding my phone sideways. I just like to have it portrait, and it just makes things easier for me. So there are different ways to kind of make your page suit itself on whatever orientation it's in, and there's ways to lock the orientation, obviously. Well, in fact, I don't think you even get a natural orientation in the phone's device, so you have to set that manually. But for what we've done here, this is exactly what I'm saying. This is how it should be. This is how we can align all of our objects on the page and make sure that everything stays nice and neat. Another thing you can do, if you wanted to check and you forgot how much you margined it down and you weren't using the properties down here, you have actually got where the joiners are here. You can see that this has been margined 20 from the top. This one's come down 120. If you wanted to know exactly how much from the left this button is sitting, if you just click on what looks like this little shackle, it will tell you that it's 340. And then I always turn them off again because we don't want them to stay on. But these ones kind of tell you that we've gotten 20 and we've gone from up here. Now, another way we could do this button, a different way we can lay it out, is we could get rid of these, and as you can see, actually, I think the page has done it itself when we were making our changes. If you put the button in on right and then set its alignment to the top, you'd find it's a lot easier for displaying it on this page. So we could come down by 120, and then we could come away from the right, which sends it to the left by 20. So you can do this from all different angles, and the same applies. You've got the different choice. You've got left, center, right, and stretch. So if you were doing a text block that was always text box, sorry, that's always going to be the width of the page, then you use stretch. And effectively, what that will do when you take your margins out is it will make sure that the box will stretch itself accordingly. But what you have to do for that is you have to set these to automatic. Oh, it's not going to let me do it now. There you go, and then auto. So we wouldn't have an automatic height that would stretch all the way down the bottom, because what we've done is we've only set stretch on the horizontal. If we set the vertical to stretch, then it would stretch the box all the way down the page. But because we're setting it to top, what automatic actually does is when you're not stretching it, it automatically adjusts its height depending on what size font, or what kind of font you're using. So if you look at the default text when we put it in here, if we just enter something random, like, I don't know, random, then you'll see that the text is like perfectly sized for this text box. But if we were to change the size of our text, you would see that the automatic side of the layout would adjust itself from 72 accordingly. So it will either go up or down depending on how you've changed your size. So that's just a quick overview on the layouts, the margins, and kind of making your application a bit neater. In the next tutorial, I will be going over some of the image stuff and showing you how to use images, how to effectively use an image like a button, like so that you can have a tap event. I'll just explain the benefits of why I do that and why you might want to use it, and generally we'll just go from there. So I look forward to seeing you in the next tutorial, guys.